related issues going on, that it's becoming a bigger and bigger and more controversial topic. According to my audience analysis, a little more than half of you said that you think that police brutality is a big problem that needs to be addressed, and a little less than half said you didn't think it was as big of a problem, which is interesting. So today I'm here to inform you about an event in history that had a huge impact on the discussion of police brutality, not just in the city that the event actually occurred in, Los Angeles, but in the entire country. So some of the points I'll be going over with you today are the Rodney King beating, how that unfolded, the trial that took place afterwards, and the riots that ensued in Los Angeles after the verdict of the trial. So I'll start by telling you specifically about the Rodney King beating and how that unfolded. So March 1st, 1991, Rodney King, an African-American male, was pulled over in Los Angeles after speeding over 100 miles an hour down a freeway. He was pulled over by 3 white male police officers. According to biography.com, at the time of being pulled over, King was already on parole for armed robbery and assault. So one of the officers approached King, tried to place him under arrest. King showed signs of aggression, resisted arrest, and actually charged one of the officers. So as you can imagine, the 3 police officers didn't take very well to this, and they threw King on the ground and they beat him continuously for minutes until he was no longer able to resist arrest or even move at all, really. So little did anyone know at the time that this entire incident that was happening was being captured on film. There was an amateur cameraman who lived in an apartment building across the street who had filmed the whole thing. And according to CNN.com, this man eventually took that video, sent it into a local news station, where it was then broadcast on local news, and then it didn't take long for national news to pick it up. So this is the first time in this incident that police brutality really starts, the topic of police brutality really starts to come to the surface. So people are talking about it in Los Angeles, obviously, and then it spreads around the whole country because people had talked about it before, but now people were seeing it on their television screens around the country. So, and you can still look up the video today, and it's pretty hard to watch. It's just 3 officers basically just like beating him senseless. So about a year after this, there's finally a trial. The 3 white police officers are charged with assaulting Rodney King, and they're charged with assaulting Rodney King, and basically in the trial, the most important thing to remember is that initially when the local news stations got a hold of the videotape, the news stations only showed an excerpt of it, a small piece, which was the officers beating King. So in the trial, the entire videotape was shown, which had never before really been seen by anyone. And this actually showed King showing signs of aggression, charging after one of the officers, and then the officers continuing to beat him. So this played a huge role in the overall verdict of the trial. So after the entire video was shown, it took the jury about 45 minutes to reach their decision, and their verdict was that the 3 officers were found not guilty of assaulting Rodney King. So most of the nation was in shock after this, as you can imagine. People in Los Angeles were furious, and several hours after the verdict of the trial, riots began to erupt in downtown Los Angeles. And this is eventually what became known as the infamous Rodney King riots. There's that's a still photo from the video of the officers beating him. So the Rodney King riots arguably are the worst riots in the history of the United States. According to the Journal of Urban Studies, there were 53 deaths, 10,000 arrests, 2,300 injuries, and almost $1 billion in damages to the city of Los Angeles. Police actually had to issue a mandatory curfew that couldn't be broken after a certain time. No one was allowed to be on the streets for any reason whatsoever, just because of how dangerous it was. The riots lasted for 6 days, and then after 6 days of basically destroying Los Angeles, the Navy and the Coast Guard both had to come in to put an end to all the chaos. So now that I've told you about the Rodney King beating, the trial, and the riots that took place afterwards, I can tell you about how this sparked a huge movement of awareness for police brutality and how it's affected society today. So now there's all kinds of influential and popular groups growing around the country. For example, Black Lives Matter. And one thing they try to do is promote more awareness for police brutality and how serious of a problem it is. And they try to hold police more accountable for their actions. You have police training programs that are being implemented in police stations around the country that are helping officers to not use any type of excessive force in situations like this when they're dealing with aggressive people or aggressive situations. And then finally, you have more recent situations that are similar to the Rodney King beating, such as the shooting and killing of Trayvon Martin by the white police officer, and then even more recent, you have the riots in Ferguson in Missouri after another young African-American man was killed by a white police officer. And these are all just making police brutality a more and more prevalent thing in our society today. So it's a huge deal now, and the Rodney King riots is arguably the main thing that has made police brutality such a heated topic in society today.